Hello everyone. In the previous lecture I have discussed about the basic thing of regarding the swings. What is Java swing, what is the difference between AWT and swing, and what does mean JFC and hierarchy of Java swing class, and what are the common method are used in component classes. Those things I have already covered in my previous lecture. So in this lecture I am going to discuss is very important concept of Java JButton. That thing I will discuss in my this lecture, and we also talk about the some of the common method that are use of abstract button class, and also what are the constructor used regarding this JButton class. That is very important, and I also show you the coding example of JButton, and I also talk about the Java text field which are commonly used, the constructor, what are the commonly used method of regarding JText fields, so that you can get the idea how to use the JText fields. And I will also discuss the example of JText field by using coding example, so that you can get the idea how to use the JText field in your system or by using Java. And at the end I will mix up the example of JButton and JText field with a single example with the help of action listener example. So that last example is very important, because most of the time you are going to use not only a single button, not only a single text field, we have to use the multiple component in your window according to your requirement. So that is why this is very important. So what kind of listener you are going to use according to this JButton class or JText field class. So that is very important. So last example is very important, so I will cover in this lecture. So let's start with the JButton. So JButton is a class, you already know that in our hierarchy we have seen. So JButton is a class, and we have to just know that JButton is used to create the level button that has a platform independent, because we have already discussed that swing is a platform independent implementation. So the application result in some access when the button push. So if I push a button in our window, we will see that. So suppose I have created a button, so for example click, I have just renamed this button with this text. So if I click this button, so some event will be happened. Okay, so that part is very important. So that is the ultimate purpose of Java JButton. So if I want to create the button, and JButton class, we have know that if I want to implement any swing, so we have Java X dot swing and dot JButton. Okay, so if I explicitly see that about that Java button class, so I will write in this way, and otherwise we can use the import java dot swing, javax dot swing dot star, we can write. So the all the classes which are available in component, that must be available to our program. So this is the very important. So next is, what are the commonly used constructor in case of Java button classes. Let us see, there are three important constructor in case of Java JButton classes. So I will discuss one by one. So this constructor is very important, and we will see with an example also. So how to use those constructor according to our requirement, because those three constructor are basically used for different purpose. For example, in the first constructor, you know the class name is, I have already discussed, the class name is JButton class. Okay, the name of the class is JButton. So the constructor name is JButton, because we know that constructor name and class name must be same. So here we have a the constructor which is no argument constructor, we have a parameterized constructor also, and you know the difference between the constructor, no argument constructor and parameterized constructor also. So here the JButton, the first, most of the time we are going to use the JButton, it create a button with a no text and icon. So if I don't pass any argument to this text, we do not pass any argument as a string, as a icon, so that means it will create a simply button. So it will create a simply button, but no text is available. So it will create a button, but there is no text. So most of the time we have seen about in different website that here something has been written, for example submit, or we have written for example click something, that has been written in as a label of any text button. So that part will be omitted, because I have just call the no argument constructor. So that means we have not passed any argument to this constructor. So it simply create with no fixed text, with no text and icon. So there is no text and there is no icon in the button. So most of the time we have seen in many application, web application, we have seen that the text field have some icon also. So if I want to write, for example, a arrow for example, if I want to see, so this is my button, and within this button I have just use a object arrow symbol. Okay, it may be sometimes they use, and then that part, that is called icon object. So most of the time we will not see that. So if you use the first one, and second one is most frequently used, that is JButton with string. So that constructor, this constructor is most frequently used. This is very important, because most of the time you are going to use the JButton string. So it create a button with a specified text. Suppose I have just passed a string. For example, if I write JButton, if I pass a string JButton new j equal to new j, and then if you write JButton, and if I pass a string, for example, submit, so that string will be that string. If I write submit, so submit will be written here over the button. So this method, this constructor is frequently used. Most of the time we are going to use this JButton constructor when we want to pass an argument as a string. So it create a button with a specified text. So whatever the text I am going to pass within this as an argument of this constructor, then that constructor will just take the argument and process according to, and that part of the string will be shown in our button also. So that most of the frequently use the JButton. Second constructor is most frequently used, and we can really use the third one, the JButton icon object. I have just mentioned that if I want to add a specified icon with an object, so then we go for the third one. So these are the three important commonly used constructor in case of JButton. We will see with an example both two. We will discuss with an example also. So whenever I will discuss about the JButton example, I will show both of them. You can see also, and this is very important. What are the important classes or method are available in abstract class, abstract button class. So in case of hierarchy of Java Swing class, we have seen that the button class, JButton class, extend the abstract button class. So so that it's a child class. JButton class is a child class of abstract button class. So this, what are the commonly method is very important, because most of the time we are going to use, there are so many method. I have just mentioned so many commonly used method. You can find most of the methods from the tutorial also. And here the first thing is very important. Since I have, in case of button, most of the time we have used the set text. So it is used to set the specified text on button. So if I want to set some text in the button, so then this we use the set text method. Is very important. Sometimes whatever the text has been written within the text of the button, so that text will return to the text of the button. So suppose you have written the submit or click, so that text, if you want to access, then we use the get text method. So set text, get text is commonly used. And the third method is set enable. That is very important, because we, in case of previous lecture, I have just discussed about the most commonly used the set visible. Suppose the component will be visible. So like that, if I want to, it is used to enable or disable the button. If I want to only enable or disable this button, so we use the set enable. Even in case of third constructor, we have used the set icon. If you want to specify the icon on the button, then you use the set icon. And the fourth one is get icon. So if what are the icon has associated with the button, if I want to get it, so this one is very important. And the last method, which is very important, because most of the time we are going to use some action listener, because suppose I want to click on that button, so what will be happen, so what event will be generated. So most of the time we are going to use, because we have seen so many action listener, so many listener classes. Here I will discuss just only that one action listener is associated with the JButton, because when we create a button, so our main purpose is, if I click that button, then something will be happen, that is actually our target. So we use the add action listener interface or method regarding, so pass an argument is action listener object. So this is very important, because it is used to add the action listener to this object. Suppose I want to add action listener to my button, so I will explain with an example. So you will get the idea. So if I click on that button, what the event will be generated, and what are the action has to be performed, that action has to be written within this action add action listener class, right. So this method is very important. So these are the first 1 2, I have just discussed 1 2 3 4 5 6. So this 6 method is frequently used, that is why I have just mentioned that commonly used method of abstract button class regarding this Java button. Okay. So let us see an example of JButton. Welcome to coding session. In this session I will discuss or demonstrate the Java JButton example. So as I already seen in our the commonly method of Java JButton or abstract button class, we also discuss about some commonly used the constructor which are used. So I am going to use in this example, so how to implement the JButton by using swing program. So let's see. So in this example, just I will demonstrate how to create a button. Okay. So first is, we have already mentioned that if I want to use any swing program, I want to implement any swing program, we have to import javax.swing.start. Okay. Otherwise you can just, if I want to implement only the button class, so then we have to write JButton then comma, right. So this portion is very important. So look at this one. So this is my import statement. It's very essential most of the time. And the second one is my class name. So in this example I have just given the class name is button example. So public class button example, this is my class name. And then within the main method I have just created frame. So in our hierarchy we have seen that we have a frame class, so we just create a frame. Otherwise we can extend the frame class also. So we can create a frame, so that frame name will be displayed in our window screen, so we can see that. Okay. So here I have just passed a string argument EE604C underscore button example. So this is one of the arguments, string argument, just I am going to pass of JFrame constructor. And this is the important thing, just I have to return. My class name is JButton, because I want to create a JButton and new JButton. And we have also mentioned that whenever we are going to create a button, we can pass no argument, even we can pass a string argument. So in this example I have just passed a string argument, so that string will be displayed in our button, click me. So later I will change it so that you can understand. And the next method is very important. So bound, every time we have to bound it. Okay, set bound method is very important. I have just discussed earlier also. So where we want to place the component in our window, so that that is the x-axis, y-axis index, and where we are to place. So here example 50, then 100, then 95, then and 30. So this is the parameter, integer parameter. You will see the difference also if I want to see there. Okay. Next is add function. We have just also mentioned that what are the commonly method used associated with this component class. So for the first method I have just discussed about the add method. So then we have to pass a component. Okay. What are the component? Here button is a component or object, you can see that, and this button is passed as an argument, and this button is add with my frame. Okay. So this line please. This line is very important. This line. So this is add function, my commonly used add function, that we have passed b as an argument. Okay, everything. So after creating button, that will be treated as a object. That object is bound, then this object is add to my frame class, and that frame set visible, set size, we have just discussed. The set size means we have to set the component size. So here 400 400, this is the size of this button, and that set size associated will be called this frame class, because we know that frame is a component class. So that f dot set size, this method is very important. Even we have talked about the layout manager. Here I am not going to add any layout, so you can pass this null as an argument. You can pass null as an argument, you can pass it. And the last thing is that set visible is true. That is very important. So because I told you that set the visibility of the component, so I want to show the button in my window, so that's why I have just mentioned set visible true. So by default this value is false. Okay, if I don't write anything, so by default value is false. So these are regarding. So let's see what will be the output. Let me continue. Let me execute this code. Yes, this one. Okay, so now compare with this one. Here the J frame, so name of the EE604C, so that will be displayed in our screen. Okay, and click me that value I have just written. You can write also click. Okay, so whatever the string you are going to pass, that string will be displayed in my screen also. Okay, so here look at this. This is click me and this is click. Two instance I have running here. So I have just used the second one. Okay, and here that button is, this is my button. Okay, and this is the threads. Whenever just call this JButton constructor, I have just passed this string as an argument. That argument will be displaying my button. Okay, we have also seen so many other methods also, how to get the text of the button, get button, set button. So set text, get text method is we have also discussed. And this button is add to this window. Okay, frame. So I have just create J frame equal to new J frame. So that button component will be add to this frame. So that's why I have used the add method. I have used set size 400 into 400, 400 by 400. So that is the size of the button. Let's see. Let me change this size so that you can get the idea. For example, the size is 800. Okay. What does it mean actually? Let me close all the previous button. See that. What is the size? So this is 400 and this is 800, right? And even if I want to, let me write, instead of 50, let me write 300. So let's see what will happen. So look at the previous one. Here the size is from this one left hand side to that point is 50. Now let me close this one and execute the new one so that you can get the idea. So here look at this. The idea is, okay. Here the size is 300. So this means this function used as a, and this is the where the left 100. So let me change this one against once again, so we can get the idea. For example, this is 200. Okay, so 200 means, let me execute this one. You can change, compare with the first one, you can change. That is the distance. So here the distance is very low compared to the window. So this is this function is used for that purpose. So set bound is very important and common function. Have just also mentioned the set bound, set visible function. So if I say let me execute is false, so that button will be not displayed. So let me execute get the new one, the program will be run. So button will be not seen, so it not seen. Okay, let me execute once time. So it not seen. So to show the frame, so we have to use the true. So I think you are familiar with now what is the meaning of set visible, what is the meaning of set size, what does mean the add if you don't want to add. So every time if I want to place the component to my frame, then we have to use the add function. We have also discussed about the set bound function. So that's all about this JButton example. Okay.